another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. Currently covering the trial of Lucy Letby over in the UK. Now, I don't bring you updates very often because this is a trial that is spread out over months. It started last November of 2022. It is still going on in the UK. The jurors, when they were impaneled or prior to being impaneled, were told you need to make yourself available for at least 6 months. Lucy Letby is on trial. 22 charges she faces of attempted murder and murder on 17 infants. Murder of 7 of those infants and attempted murder on the other 10 infants. Some of those infants more than one time. That's how we get to 22. So what the prosecution is doing is going through each, like a mini trial. Each baby is a mini trial. You hear from the parents, you hear from the records person who comes in and brings in all the medical records, and they go through the medical records to see what's there. Then they bring in the nurses, the doctors, the experts, all to speak to this one infant. Then the defense comes up and they ask questions, cross-examination, and then they go on to the next baby. And just one infant can take weeks. It's, like I said, it's like all these little mini trials. So I am up to the recap of baby G and baby H. They are lettered due to confidentiality. None of the babies are supposed to be named, neither are their parents. But I guarantee you, all of those parents are sitting in that courtroom watching every single day that they have trial. They go for long stretches where there's no trial. Either a juror is sick or someone doesn't feel like attending. Like, I don't feel like going to work today. No court. Yeah, it's strange. And the other thing I've found out in the UK, they do not have live streaming of trials. It's something that I don't know what you call it, the politicians over in the UK, they're considering. It's being pushed, because a lot of the people in the UK don't even understand how a court works because they've never seen the inside of the courtroom. They've not been a defendant, they've not been a plaintiff, they've never been a witness, and they've not seen it through live streaming. They don't know how a court case proceeds. So it's very scary. And a lot of it makes the argument is that there's no really oversight of what's going on in the court system. They can take long stretches where they don't have court. It's all relaxed. Nobody's watching. Even the media doesn't really cover it that much. This case is being covered because of the significance of it. In any case, these murders and attempted murders happened in 2015. Lucy Letby was arrested in 2017, released, and then arrested again in 2018. So we're going to talk about baby G. The other ones I have already talked about. A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, I'm singing. I know. I have a playlist. I'll link the playlist here if you want to go back and start from the beginning. You can. All right, so baby G was born on May 31st of 2015. Baby G was the most premature baby of the 17 children that are involved in this case. The baby was born at the Arrow Park Hospital, which is a tertiary center, which means they are prepared for the sickest of sick babies and the most premature, moms that come in. So they're doing this really high level care for maternity and neonatal intensive care. So mom, at 23 weeks, 6 days, she comes into the hospital because her water is leaking. The fluid around the baby is leaking out. So they're monitoring her. She tells the nursing staff, I have a stomach ache. And the nurses, they don't think to check her for labor. And she goes into the bathroom and delivers the baby in the toilet. The call bell doesn't work, so she has to scream out for help. So she screams, someone responds, they fish the baby out of the toilet, and resuscitate the baby, place the baby on a ventilator, and for the next few weeks, this baby is really, really sick. The baby is on a ventilator. She was only given 5% chance of survival, this infant, and it was a female. She suffered from chronic lung disease, kidney and bowel problems, infections, high blood sugar, jaundice, all the complications that a poor neonatal, premature infant can have. And it's so unfortunate. This was a baby who was a product of IVF. These parents really, really wanted this baby. Well, not that parents don't want their babies, but this just a very, very sad case. So anyway, the baby progresses, stabilizes to the point where she is off of oxygen, she's getting fed, she's growing. So they transfer the baby over to Countess of Chester Hospital, where Lucy Letby is employed. And that takes place on August 13th. By then, the baby is 13 weeks old. She's at a gestation of 37 weeks. She weighs 4 pounds, and she's being fed her mom's breast milk every 3 hours. But it's not, I'm sure they were attempting to have her take a bottle when she was awake, but I'm sure that while she was sleeping, because she's got to be fed every 3 hours. So I'm sure if the baby was sleeping, they weren't waking the baby up. They would put the NG tube in, a nasogastric tube. You put it in through the nose and it goes down into the stomach. And then you administer the fluid slowly. It drips into the baby and then you take it out afterwards. And baby usually doesn't even wake up. It's a very simple procedure. The baby was on oxygen. I think I said the baby was off oxygen. The baby was still on oxygen, but through just the nasal thing. When you go to the hospital and they put the oxygen on you, they got those things in your nose. This is what the baby had, just the nasal prongs. So doing really well until dun dun dun, Lucy Letby comes into the picture on the night of September 8th. Now, it just so happens, 7th, 6th and 7th. Okay, so the night of September 6th, Lucy works the night shift, so she would have come in at 7:30, and she's going to do the overnight into the 7th. And it just so happens that when Lucy gets there on the 6th, this is this baby's 99th day of life. They were getting ready to have this huge celebration the next day of the baby's 100th birthday with cake and balloons and banners, and the nurses were up at the nurses station working on the banner for the baby. So the baby was not assigned to Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby was taking care of a baby. This nursery is divided into 4 rooms. There's one room that is for the sickest of sick babies. The sickest of sick babies. They're usually only, because this is a level 2 hospital. It's not a tertiary center. It's a level 2. So they can only care for the sickest of sick babies up to 48 hours. Then if the baby is still very sick, they need to transfer that baby over to Arrow Park or some other hospital with a higher level of care. So they've got that's room 1. Room 2 is what they call I forget what they call it. It'll come to me. But it's the step down from 1. And then they have rooms 3 and 4, which are for the stabler babies that are just, they're growing. So Lucy that night was in room 1 with one baby assigned to her who was, I don't know what the condition of that baby was, but that was her assignment that night. The assigned nurse for baby G, who was in room number, what room number was she in? I want to say she was in room number 2. She was in room number 2 because she was still on oxygen. So she's assigned to this baby, and she feeds the baby 45 cc's of breast milk through a nasogastric tube, like I explained, because the baby was sleeping. The baby's stable, so she says, I'm going to go on my 1-hour break. Now, 45 cc's is like an ounce and a half of, like if you drank a NyQuil, that's, those bottles of NyQuil that, the caps of NyQuil that you drink, that's 30 cc's. So it would be like a cup and a half of NyQuil, but you're not going to give the baby NyQuil. It's breast milk. So she feels like, hey, this baby's stable. I'm gonna go on my 1 hour break. Now, there was no mention of whether she asked anybody if she could go on the break or if she had somebody watching this baby while she went on the break. I don't know. It's never mentioned. Now, like I said, Lucy's in another room. This particular nurse who goes on her break is one of those people I told you. She's not trained in neonatal intensive care, but she can take care of a baby. She knows how to take care of a stable baby. So when she comes back from her break, all hell has broken loose. Yeah. So here's what happened after she leaves. She's fed the baby. Baby's all comfy, sleeping. She leaves. The nurses are up at the nurses' station working on their banner because, it's the middle of the night. And the nurse all of a sudden hears a baby vomiting. And this baby G had vomited so hard, it was projectile. It went out of her crib, it hit a chair, it was all over her sheet. It was a lot of fluid. And this was pointed out on cross-examination by the defense. It's not just a little amount of fluid. It's not like, because they were trying to make it seem like, oh, the baby vomited, it's probably like 5 cc's, 10 cc's. And the doctors are saying, no. A projectile vomiting that goes beyond the crib and it hits other things, and that's probably 30, 40 cc's, the NyQuil and a half at least. However, though, when they check the baby, they put a tube down, they get 45 cc's of fluid out and a whole bunch of air. So someone overfed this baby and may have injected air into the baby's stomach, because when they had to resuscitate the baby, they had to give the baby rescue breaths. The baby's heart rate went down to 50. The oxygen rate went down to 20%. Like, you're supposed to be at 98, 99. If you're down on the low 90s, you got an issue. You're probably having some breathing difficulties. This baby was at 20. So they suction the baby, they get the fluid out of the baby's stomach. They said the baby's stomach looked swollen and discolored. Very, very sick. They're giving the baby rescue breaths. They finally have to place this baby on a ventilator. And by then it's like 3:20 in the morning. So the whoever's in charge says, okay, Lucy's going to take over the care of this baby, because she's trained in neonatal intensive care. Now, meanwhile, because Lucy's involved in this collapse and, assisting, Johnny on the spot, I'm here to rescue the baby, she's right in there. Someone else had to go take care of her baby that was in room 1. So she gets this assignment. She takes over this assignment. And lo and behold, 5:30 a.m., they get the baby transferred over to room 1. Now she's got both babies. But lo and behold, 5:30 a.m., this baby's heart rate drops again. Another collapse. So she revives the baby. 6:30 or 6:05, it happens again. So now they're thinking, what is wrong with this ventilator? Is there something wrong with the ventilator? They switch out the ventilator. Baby's still not improving. So they take the ET tube, the tube that goes down through the mouth into the lungs. They take that one out and they put another one in. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is when they intubated the baby the first time, earlier in the evening, after the first vomit, and the baby had such poor breathing. Intubation is where they put the ET tube in, and it goes down into the throat. Now, it has to be done by a doctor. So when they did that, the doctor said they saw blood behind the vocal cords, which they said sometimes you do see that. It's not unusual. But there was also blood around the baby's mouth. Does this it sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Some of those other babies that collapsed, yeah. So The second time this happens, they decide, okay, let's take this ET tube out. They take it out, and there's a blood clot at the end of the ET tube. So they put another ET tube in, and then the baby starts progressing. However, so, Lucy's there. She's there past her shift till like 10 o'clock in the morning, getting everything sorted out, getting her nurse's notes done. Then she leaves and she goes home and she starts texting her friends about her night rescuing this baby. So throughout the day shift, this baby does not improve. The baby was very, very sick, to the point where they said, we've got to transfer this baby back to Arrow Park Hospital. So they do. They transfer the baby back to Arrow Park Hospitals. The experts that took the stand for the prosecution say that they believe this to be Lucy Letby, and they believe that she injected she overfed the baby. I don't know. She wasn't even assigned to that room. How do you come in, give the baby more formula through an NG tube? So you got to put the NG tube in, give more formula, inject it. That takes time. Did nobody see her in this room? Nobody was watching? It doesn't make sense to me. But they're saying that the baby was overfed and that someone injected air into the baby. So the baby comes back. The baby goes over to Arrow Park, makes a remarkable recovery, comes back on September 16th of 2017. So the prosecution is alleging that the baby's first collapse after the nurse left her to go on her break was the first attempt. That's charge number 1 for baby G. The second attempt was at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, when Lucy's taking care of this baby, has taken over the care of this baby, and the baby collapses again. But it's, could it have been due to the ET tube being blocked? What caused all this blood? No one knows. So that's attempt number 2. Now we're going to talk about attempt number 3. The baby comes back on September 16th, 2017. Hits another milestone. September 21st. This was the mom's original due date. This baby would have been term on September 21st. So the baby goes into nursery room 4. So very, very stable, this child. Very stable. Just there to gain some weight, and Lucy Letby is the assigned nurse. Yep, you guessed it. So shortly, her shift starts at 7:30. 9:15, the baby starts vomiting. She's feeding the baby, again, 40 cc's via the nasogastric tube, because the baby's asleep. The baby vomits twice, projectile vomiting twice. Same thing, stop breathing, heart rate drops, oxygen level drops. They come in. The baby's stomach is swollen, discolored. Now, the doctor that responded, to that emergency, they stabilized the baby, and then she gets called to a delivery. She leaves to let the nurses continue the care. She leaves to go to this delivery, and then she's called out of the delivery to come back because the baby's still not doing well. So when she comes back, because Lucy Letby is again called for help, the baby collapsed again. She sees Lucy Letby giving rescue breaths to the baby. Now, here's what happened before this woman leaves. Well, I don't know if it was a female doctor or not. Anyway, before the doctor leaves, in between the projectile vomiting and the heart rate going down and the breaths going down, they're trying to resuscitate the baby. They bring the baby back, and they're trying to start an IV, an intravenous line, so they can give the baby medication. It takes them 7 attempts to get an IV. That is not unusual. That is not unusual. I've worked neonatal intensive care. 7 attempts is not bad, really. I mean, it sounds horrible. Like, for me, you get 2 tries. That's it. If you don't get it on the second try, no, you're going to get somebody else. And there were different people trying, but babies can be very, very difficult, especially babies that are older, that have been sick in the past. A lot of their veins are not good anymore. You can try the head. I used to put them in the head, the feet, anywhere you can get a vein. I think they finally got one in the baby's foot in this case. So when they were doing it, because they're in this nursery room 4, they've drawn a privacy curtain around the baby, because there's other moms and babies in there. So they get the IV. This doctor leaves to go to this delivery. When she comes back, she's called back out of the delivery because the baby has crashed again under Lucy Letby's care. So she comes in, she sees Lucy giving the baby rescue breaths with the bag and mask. I know that was weird. Okay. The heart rate was not being monitored. The heart rate monitor was off. The O2 monitor was off. We don't know what the baby's heart rate was or the oxygen level. Someone had turned the monitor off. Now, there was a nurse who testified who said this same physician and another physician came up to her. They're not naming this nurse. They came up to her and they apologized for leaving the private baby unattended behind this privacy screen, and not turning the monitor back on. Now, both of these doctors took the stand and they were asked, and neither could remember this. No, we don't. I don't even know how to turn the monitor off. Why would I? That kind of thing. I don't remember saying anything like that. They both denied it. They couldn't remember. But one of the doctors said, "Well, if she's saying it, maybe it happened, but I don't remember that." So they do get the baby back, and the baby starts improving, and the baby actually does go home on November 2nd. Unfortunately, this baby had a horrible outcome, and I don't know that you can attribute it to the events, surrounding Lucy Letby, or if you can attribute it to the extreme prematurity, or the being born in the toilet. I'm sure there were several instances over this baby's first few months of life where she was deprived of oxygen. So she has serious cerebral palsy. It's quadriplegic cerebral palsy, which is like the worst. She's unable to walk. Quad means she has no use of her arms and legs. She has to be fed through a tube that's in her stomach. They actually surgically put in a tube, and you're fed through that tube. She requires round-the-clock care. She's 7 years old right now, and super sad case. Sad outcome for baby G. So let's move on. So now it's like we're at the end of baby G. This is like Christmas break. And now the jury and the court, they take their Christmas break, the 2-week break. 2 weeks. The court takes 2 weeks for Christmas. But they don't come back after the 2 weeks because one of the jurors is sick. And another one of the jurors had a family member pass away. So they're on bereavement. So another week goes by. So now we've had almost a month before they resume court. And they finish up baby G and start with baby H when they do resume. This is a very long court case. My God, I've never seen anything like it. I'm also going to say I've never seen anything like what's happening to these babies. As a neonatal intensive care nurse, projectile vomiting in an infant is rare, very rare. Yeah, you just, I don't know that I've ever seen it. Do babies vomit? Yeah, they do. But projectile? Not Really? No. In any case, so baby H was born on September 26th of 2015. She was a full-term baby. She was born via C-section, 5 pounds, 2 ounces. Mom had come in at 34 weeks. Now I say full-term, 34 weeks. It's in between premature and full-term. So sometimes you never know what you're going to get at 34 weeks. You could get a baby that's sick, you could get a baby that's okay. This baby was fine for the first 28 minutes. The mom and dad are holding the baby, kissing on, loving on the baby, and the baby starts what they call grunting, which happens sometimes in term infants. Either they've aspirated a little bit of fluid into their lungs, or there's usually different reasons why a term baby will start grunting, but you got to get into the neonatal intensive care unit. So they transfer the baby into the NICU, and they discovered that the baby has a lung puncture. Now, has nothing to do with Lucy. This is just a complication. So they end up putting at least 3 different chest tubes in this baby. The baby has to go on a ventilator and has all these drains in her chest. So sad. So she is in nursery 1, and Lucy Letby is the designated nurse for this baby. At 3:22 a.m., this baby suffers a cardiac arrest, which is really unusual for a baby to go into cardiac arrest. And no one has any explanation for how this happened, how this baby could have gone into cardiac arrest under her care. There's some suppositions that perhaps there was a delay in the baby getting a blood transfusion that was ordered, but the baby did get the blood transfusion. It was after the baby got the blood that the baby had this cardiac arrest. But there was a delay in getting the blood transfusion, and there was a delay in baby getting some of the medications that they needed for her lungs. But she did get them. But they took out the chest drain number 2 and found out that it was in the wrong place. So a bunch of different things going on with this baby. I don't know that you could attribute the cardiac arrest to Lucy. So they stabilized the baby. 22 hours later, the next night, here comes Lucy again, back for her shift, but she's not assigned to baby H. She's assigned in nursery room 2. Now baby H is still in room 1. She's over in room 2 and has an assignment there. So a doctor comes into the room 1, and finds Lucy Letby giving baby G rescue breaths, saying that the ET tube had become dislodged. So Lucy took the ET tube out. So the doctor looks at the ET tube, and there was some thick mucus on the ET tube. So the doctor puts in a new tube, and at 1:04 a.m., the baby's oxygen saturation goes down, the heart rate goes down. The tube at that point is not blocked, and the baby goes into another cardiac arrest. This time, the first time, the night before, it took them, 8 to 9 minutes of resuscitation, cardiac medications to get this baby back. This night, it took them a little bit less time to get the baby, 6 to 7 minutes to get the baby's cardiac condition under control. But they do semi-stabilize this baby and transfer the baby to Arrow Park Hospital. That baby ends up surviving, had no brain damage, thank God. But Lucy is charged with 2 attempts on that baby's life. All I'm going to say is the defense's case is not strong against this nurse. It isn't. If your evidence is she's always in the wrong place at the wrong time, I don't know that's enough to put somebody in prison. I'm just saying. So tell me what your thoughts are. The next babies, well, obviously H is going to be I and J. So we're going to keep on plugging along till we get through all these babies. Oh my gosh, what a tangled web we weave. Yep. All right, guys, I will see you in the next video. Crafting and Crime Daily. Have a great day. Bye.